in Wales for treatment. But, Plaid talks about wanting to keep the waiting list going down, but at the same time wanting to focus more on primary care and also on health prevention. Can you do all of those things? Is there the money to do all of those things and achieve the other stuff that Plaid wants to achieve? Because, as I've already said, it's a pretty challenging fiscal landscape that they're going to be dealing with over the next 4 years. So I think that's a major problem, and they're probably going to have to decide what it is they want to focus on and spend the money on that.
Zanny, at risk of being accused of being a cynic again, I think, wasn't the subtext of your second question about shoveling money at health and other public services and them not improving, kind of getting at that question for all centre-left parties around the world right now, that when you've borrowed as much as the markets will let you borrow, you can't just spend more money and cross your fingers and hope that things like the health service or the police get better.
And that's not cynical at all. That's completely
It's just correct.
That's correct. I mean, that is the sort of backdrop. In some ways, it's sort of interesting. Wales is a bit further ahead of the rest of the country on this. You can't. I mean, it's the big question, the big issue underpinning all of our political debates right now. I mean, this government has talked a huge amount about getting growth going again. There's been, you all know this, essentially stagnant productivity growth since 2008. That's why wages haven't risen. That's why the economy is in a funk. And when you have no growth, then the whole of politics becomes about who gets the bigger slice of a shrinking pie or a flat or pie that's not growing. And so it becomes this kind of, do we spend more on this or do we spend more on that? And then the only way out is you borrow. We've borrowed a heck of a lot. We can't borrow anymore. The really interesting thing, or one of the interesting things of the last week, was basically that the bond market spoke and some of the candidates for Labour leadership realized that the bond market's actually James Carville, in 1992, he was Bill Clinton's consigliere, and he said, when I die, I want to be reincarnated as the bond markets because the bond market has all the power. And in this country, it's really true now. I mean, gilts go up and the government and everyone has to say, oh, no, we're not going to break the fiscal rules. No, we're not going to do that. And that's the reality that Britain's in. And we are, very, very close to a bond market crisis. A few more bad policies and a shock or two, and this country is in real trouble.
Just explain what a bond market crisis actually would be.
Gilts, people, foreign and domestic investors no longer wanting to buy UK gilts unless they get a much higher premium for them, and as a result, interest rates go up, and that hugely affects interest rates throughout the economy. I mean, and the UK, this is actually, I think, another result of Brexit, because we used to be seen broadly, we weren't part of the euro, of course, but we used to be seen partly sort of big picture as part of Europe. Now we're a mid-size economy on our own on the edge of Europe with a gilt market and a large amount that we need to borrow. And so we're relying on British investors, but particularly foreign investors, buying our gilts, and we have got a huge amount of debt. And that's the kind of constraint that British politics is in. And to get around that, I mean, I sound like a broken record, but you have to get the economy growing. And the ingredients to getting the economy growing are not, they're well known. Actually all, you can't talk about both parties any longer because...
Especially not in Wales.
5 parties now, or more. Everyone who's really looked at this knows that the keys to getting the British economy growing are planning reform, all of the things that make it easier to do business. I would say, welfare reform is essential. Some forms of making it more encouraging businesses to invest, all of this. And then there is this juggernaut coming towards us all in the form of AI and the transformation that artificial intelligence is bringing to our economies. I don't see anyone really talk about it nearly enough because it is, whether we like it or not, it's coming towards us like a high-speed express train. And that's the environment we need to get growth. I'm really optimistic about the UK in the sort of medium term, and I'll give you my 10-second homily on the UK. If you look back over the last...
Should we set this to music? So it sounds
patriotic and stirring. If you look back over the past 80 years, twice, the UK has radically reshaped the relationship between the state and the market and led the world in doing so. The first time was the creation of the welfare state, when the UK basically reinvented what sort of social democracy was about, and everybody else copied us. And then the second time, more controversially perhaps, was the Thatcher Revolution in the early 80s. Radical change, privatization, deregulation, the rest of the world copied. I have always thought that the UK is in the best place to come up with what a sensible state for the 21st century looks like. And we haven't done it yet. I don't see it in this government. I had hoped it might be. Maybe it's the next one. But we ought to be having that conversation. What kind of tax system? What kind of benefit system? What much bolder reforms than we're talking about right now. It's a whole kind of different canvas.
And if we don't set that to music, I hope somebody does. Felicity.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to pick up on that point, which I think is a really important one. I mean, we hear the Chancellor saying all the time that currently 1 in every 10 pounds that the UK government spends is facilitating the debt, right? And that is money that cannot be spent on improving public services or whatever else. And although, you know, gilt yields have risen right around the globe, haven't they, because of what's going on in Iran. However, there's a UK premium on that. And I think one of the reasons for that is that there is no confidence that the UK government will get to grips with its debt because the bond markets have seen successive, this is not a party political point, the UK bond markets have seen successive governments of successive colours failing to get to grips with debt. So when a new Chancellor comes in, as Rachel Reeves has done, and said, OK, I'm going to do all my spending up front, and then I'm going to start tightening in the final few years of the Parliament, they don't believe necessarily that it's actually going to happen, especially when you think of the raw politics of it. I mean, how many chancellors really want to go into a general election cutting back on things, right? That's when politically they want to be in a position to be able to splurge. So I think there's a credibility issue too that's piled up. Would you agree over
I completely
years,
agree,
really?
but I sort of slightly tear my hair out when I hear that the latest set of proposals, which are, you know, cutting VAT on kids menus and all of that. I mean, it was, you know,